Welcome to Pleasurology Island. I'm Free Thought Steve, the lone pleasurologist. Thanks for stopping by. I've been talking to you about my comprehensive pleasurology program, which I think will be the first thoroughly effective program of psychotherapy if people start to actually use it and put it into practice. It certainly worked for me. I've been using it for 53 years. 53 years since I first started pleasurology, 50 years since I learned how to have super euphoric sex in the sauna of my aunt and uncle's house while everybody else was at work and I was at home. I went and sat in the sauna, and I used to go in there and masturbate regularly. It was in the basement of the house. My aunt and uncle lived on the floor up above, and my cousin Tex lived up there. And Tex and Tom would often come down to use the sauna, which had been built for them by their father. But Tex and Tom were over at their father's department store working not far across town. And I was, on the other hand, getting my teaching credential. So I would get home from doing my teaching credential studies about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Tom and Tex wouldn't get home until about 5, and then they might come and take a sauna at that point. And they always kindly left to keep themselves amused, I guess, while they were in the sauna. They left copies of Playboy and Penthouse in the sauna. This was 1975, and Penthouse and Playboy were both getting fairly explicit by that time, so it was good jacking off material. And I'd been reading a book about tantric sex called Tantra, the Yoga of Sex, and it didn't really have a lot of description of what you do sexually. It was mostly about breathing, pranayama, and doing deep breaths and rhythmic breathing and so forth. But at one point, in the book, the author finally says, well, so what you want to do in tantric sex is you want to try and have an orgasm, or you want to try and get turned on, try and get aroused without actually having an orgasm. And I had never really thought about doing that as a thing in and of itself, as a practice in masturbation, and I thought I would give it a try. And that was the day I discovered super euphoric sex and realized that, my brain was capable of containing a whole lot more sexual bliss energy than I ever realized it could. And then, when I had an orgasm, the orgasms were full consciousness orgasms, which was something that I had never experienced before, except possibly when I had my very first orgasms. They were so powerful, they came right up through the center of my consciousness, it seemed like. Well, this was even bigger than that. This expanded out. The sexual bliss cloud expanded out before orgasm, and then when I triggered the orgasm reflex, the orgasmic waves coming from the contractions in my sex organs coming up into my brain flowed, those waves of orgasmic pleasure flowed throughout my brain, and I had what I call a cosmic oceanic orgasm. It was like an oceanic experience where you feel completely submerged in the experience. The experience is all around you, and it felt like the whole cosmos was having an orgasm. And I think, you've heard the term cosmic consciousness. And cosmic consciousness is actually when we ourselves are able to get in touch with every portion of our own field of consciousness, which a lot of times is blocked out from us. But we learn how to eliminate our thoughts and let our conscious attention expand outward as far as it wants to go into all of the sensations that are out there and down into our body which is nice and relaxed, and we are able to perceive our body. So our consciousness flows into our body and outward in all directions. That's cosmic consciousness. And then a cosmic orgasm is when you have an orgasm while you're in this state of cosmic consciousness. First, you fill up consciousness with sexual arousal bliss energy, which is a combination of physical energy from the sex organs plus emotional energy from the emotional brain, turns into a bliss cloud in consciousness, which we let expand out to fill consciousness entirely. And then we trigger the orgasm reflex, and the orgasm fills consciousness also. Now, an interesting thing I didn't know about the word cosmos and cosmic. Cosmos has a very specific meaning. It's a Greek word. And it means everything that exists, the universe, which, of course, the Greeks didn't think was that big. But we know now it's much bigger than the Greeks thought. But the quality of a cosmos is that it is an orderly cosmos, an orderly universe, a universe that works by laws and that is harmonious, and things are well ordered in the cosmos. And the opposite of cosmos is chaos. Chaos is when there's a lot of stuff existing, but it's just floating around and swirling around, and there's no order to it. And in mythology, it's the divinities, the gods, these imaginary agents who bring order out of the chaos, create order out of the chaos. That is the task of an imaginary being that we call gods, is to create an orderly cosmos out of a previously existing chaos. Now, in modern science, we understand that it is an orderly universe, that the universe operates according to natural laws that work uniformly and that can be counted on. You can bet your life that these natural laws are going to work all the time, and you'll always be right. So we live in a cosmos. We don't live in a chaotic universe. We live in a universe that is very complex, and all of the elements in the universe are interacting very complexly, but they're acting in an orderly fashion. They're interacting in an orderly fashion, even though it's very, very complex. Everything that happens is the natural result of previous causes. We can't predict what's going to happen next because the interactions are so complex that the future always turns out to be different than we can imagine it to be, because there are always unexpected things that happen that we haven't taken into account because we don't understand the immense complexity. We don't know all of the complex elements that are interacting, but they are interacting in an orderly way. And so that's good, because we can, in our own immediate environment, we can count on keeping ourselves safe if we pay attention to what's going on and realize that it's going to go on in an orderly fashion. And that as long as we don't step out into the middle of a street in front of an oncoming truck or other vehicle, then we're not going to get run over by an oncoming truck or vehicle. But then another part of the order of the universe is human psychology. And human psychology, although it's very orderly, it's hard to predict. So the behavior of other people is the most unpredictable part of our environment. So it's good for us to surround ourselves with people whose behavior we can count on. And that's what would happen in the normal human environment, the environment in which our ancestors evolved. They evolved in small groups of people. They knew everybody in that group. And they knew who had a bad temper and who didn't. They knew how to relate to each person without getting them too pissed off. And they didn't have to worry that someone was going to turn against them spontaneously without warning. And so you could feel fairly safe if you live in a small group of other people. As long as you treat them well, they will treat you well, and you can feel safe. And that's the natural environment for human beings to live in. But we, unfortunately, live in huge conglomerations of people, almost all of whom are strangers to us. And we just have to trust that these people have been well enough socialized that they behave in a civilized manner. But there's always the anxiety that there may be somebody out there that's crazy and isn't civilized. And so when we live in big cities, there's a lot more anxiety, and even moderate-sized cities. Any group over 30 or 40 or 50 people, or 200 people, let's say, at maximum, there's going to be the anxiety of being surrounded by strangers. And that is part of the human condition in our civilization. We can't really get away from it unless we are lucky enough to move out to the country and move someplace really small where we know everybody around us that we live with. And that's what the hippies wanted to do. The hippies wanted to get back to that kind of environment where we could be living among people that we know well enough that we can feel totally safe and relax among them. But unfortunately, that was a dream that we had in the first wave of the psychedelic counterculture. We dreamed about living in that kind of a community, but that's not the way most of us live. Most of us live in cities surrounded by strangers. And so there's a tendency to always be anxious, particularly if we watch movies and so forth, where strange people are attacking other people, where there's a lot of people attacking other people, violent movies, which seems to be the craze right now. It's very hard to get away from. And the thing to remember is this: everything that we experience, everything we watch, like any movie that we watch, that is food for our emotional brain. It gives our emotional brain images of people behaving a certain way toward each other. And all these violent movies are infecting our emotional brain with the idea that people treat each other very badly. This is very bad role modeling. And it's even though we know that they're all just made up stories, that they're not really real, nevertheless, our emotional brain can start to get freaked out by these stories. And we should treat our emotional brain with more respect than that. What we should do is choose the food we eat, the emotional food we eat, just like we choose the food we put in our body. We only choose food that tastes good to us and makes us feel better when we eat it. We don't eat food that we hate if we can help it, We eat food that we like, and that is not only nutritious and good for our body, but at the same time, it's good for our emotions. Our emotions can usually tell us what's good for us and what isn't. But we're very careful about what we put in our body, and we should be equally careful about the kind of entertainment and other stimulation that we put in our body, because we should ask ourselves, how is this making me feel? Am I able to watch this and feel nice and relaxed? Or is it teaching my emotional brain a habit of tension and anxiety? And all too many forms of entertainment are teaching our emotional brain what it feels like to be tense and scared. And of course, people like to go to scary movies so that they can scream every so often. Why do they like to scream? It's a form of emotional release. It's a form of catharsis. And that feels good, to be so scared that we actually scream and let the energy out. And afterwards, after we leave the movie, we feel like we've had a little bit of catharsis of our fear. We've released some of that energy, gotten it out of our body, But at the same time, we've imprinted into our brains a lot of scary type images, so that doesn't actually help us relax in the long run. It's a quick fix, it's a cheap thrill to be able to scream a few times, and that feels good. But in the end, that doesn't actually make us a more relaxed person. And that's what we want to be. We want to be a relaxed person because it feels better to be relaxed, and because being a relaxed person is the prerequisite for super euphoric sex. Like when I was in the sauna, and I first tried out doing super euphoric sex, the sauna is a great place to do it because heat relaxes us. Heat relaxes our muscles, and when our muscles relax, our emotions feel better. Our emotional brain relaxes. The easiest way to relax is take a hot shower or a hot bath, or get in a sauna, or lay out in the sun for a while and let the warmth of the sun relax you. Heat is a great relaxant. And so what we need to do, since we're living in a society that makes us stressed all the time by placing demands on us, go to your job, do a good job there at your job, don't make anybody angry at your job, go to school, do your schoolwork, do it as well as you can so that you get praised instead of humiliated by your grades, and do what your parents want, et cetera, et cetera. Our whole society is based on people making demands on us. And in order for us to be relaxed, we have to learn to shield ourselves to some extent from the demands that our society is making on us. Is that a reasonable demand or not? And sometimes we may say, okay, I don't want any of those demands. Just leave me alone. I'm going to go off by myself, find some place to live, and just ignore the rest of the world, which is what I did. When I first started doing pleasurology, I spent several months in a cabin that fortunately my family owned, so I didn't have to pay rent. And my mom brought me some food so I wouldn't starve. And I just stayed up there. It was out in the country, and I stayed up there by myself for several months and practiced my yoga exercises, my muscle relaxing exercises, my breathing exercises, my Zen meditation. And I'd already been doing a lot of emotional catharsis. So I had gotten out a lot of the emotions that I needed to express. So I didn't have a lot more catharsis that I needed to do. I just was practicing learning to be calm and learning to do Tai Chi. Practice Tai Chi, moving very slowly. Moving very slowly. It doesn't matter actually the movements that you make. The important thing is that you make them slowly enough that you unlearn the habit of hurrying through everything you do. I was having to unlearn the habit of just hurrying all the time because I never had enough time for what I needed to do. So I got to go out in the country and stay there and not have to do anything and learn how to unwind and relax. And some years later, I ended up getting a job that allowed me to do that too. I was able to work on Saturday night and Sunday night, and then on Monday morning, I had the whole week off until the next Saturday afternoon, and I had to go back to work. So I had the entire week off, and I could really, slow down. And that was, I was able to pay my rent and buy my groceries and only work 2 nights a week. And that helped me learn how to slow down and not feel rushed and urgent as I went through life. I had built up a habit of anxiety, of urgency. And that's what our emotional brain does to us when it's having demands made on us. When we are having demands made on us by other people, by society, by work, by school, whatever, by relatives, all those demands are making us more urgent. Taking care of the kids, all that stuff. That's the reason why we need to take time out to relax, because otherwise you're just a passive victim of a stressogenic society, a society that generates stress for us. We all live in a stressogenic society, and we need to protect ourselves, not by becoming tougher and stronger in terms of being able to do more and more and not, get freaked out by it. We need to learn how to relax and get our emotional brain calm despite all of the things that society is asking us to do. We have to say, okay, I'm taking this period of time, I'm setting it apart to do nothing but practice the habit of Wu Wei. That's Chinese. Wu Wei. This comes from Taoism, the ancient Chinese method of pleasurology. And the goal in Taoism was to do nothing. Wu Wei means nothing doing nothing. Learn how to do as little as possible. See, that's the opposite of what our society tends to teach us. Do as much as possible in the shortest amount of time possible and cram as much as possible into your entire life. And the Taoists said, forget that. These were the guys in the culture that originated psychoactive cannabis. And cannabis helps our emotional brain slow down. Cannabis can help us look around at life and say, wow, man, I got to bring things to a complete standstill here for a little while. That's what Wu Wei, W-U-W-E-I, Wu Wei, nothing doing nothing. And that means doing nothing mentally as well as physically. And that's what meditation is when you bring your body to a standstill and you close your eyes and you try to empty your mind of thoughts as well. And you bring thought activity to a standstill and you try and bring your attention, your focus of attention to a standstill. And your whole consciousness gets nice and stable, and your body is relaxed, and you say, okay, I'm breathing, and that's all I'm doing. I'm breathing, I'm being aware of my breath, I'm listening to whatever might be going on around me, and this gradually allows our emotional brain to calm down and lose its urgency. And that's the skill that is fundamental to pleasurology. Pleasurology is based on being able to calm our emotional brain down and feel like I don't have to be doing anything. And not broadcasting anxiety from my emotional brain out into my consciousness. No, I'm turning off the anxiety circuits. There's no need to be frightened here. I'm just sitting here by myself, minding my own business, taking some time out for myself in order to create a cosmos out of my consciousness. I want to create a well-ordered consciousness. Bring things to a standstill, stabilize them, reduce the stream of thought images coming through my mind. Breathe slowly, relaxing the chest, relaxing the stomach, and be aware of my body from head to toe. Be in the present moment, not thinking about the past or the future. being aware of where I am right now, and feeling safe and calm, peaceful and serene, right here, right now. This is fundamental to pleasurology, taking time to practice the opposite of being stressed out and in a hurry. Now, it's just like with Zen meditation, where we try and clear our mind of thoughts. We don't need to be in that state of mind all the time. It's not that there's anything wrong with thinking about stuff when we want to think about stuff. But what we should be able to do is have the option to either think about stuff or have our consciousness relatively free of thought images. We need to have both of those skills. And it's the same way with our emotions. Sometimes we need to be taking care of business and, putting some urgency into things. If there's an emergency, we will be totally urgent and taking care of the emergency. But we also need to be able to live in the non-emergency mode of life. We need to be able to live in the calm mode of life. We need to be able to go back and forth. And when the environment has demanded that we urgently take care of something, and we do that, then we need to know how to go back to being calm and relaxing and losing that urgency once the situation has been taken care of. But our society doesn't teach us anything about that. Our society teaches us how to go from one emergency to another, to another, to another. And then, if by any chance we have free time, we are taught to lose ourselves in escapism, looking at entertainment of one sort or another. And what we don't do, and what is not taught to us, is how to not have to escape from ourselves when we are not busy doing something. Most people feel less anxious when they're doing something, because then they're not paying attention to how anxious they actually are. They're ignoring their anxiety and channeling their anxiety energy into constant activity. And that's what I had been doing all my life before I started to do pleasurology. And then I began to learn that it's not necessary to live that way all the time. That it'd be important for our health, as well as our happiness and our emotional well-being, to learn how to get into neutral gear, to quit just always being moving forward toward the next thing, but to let go of that and say, no, I'm going to stay right where I am now. I'm going to stay right where I am, right here, and I'm going to learn how to enjoy being right here and learn how to enjoy being with myself. That's why there's a certain sequence to pleasurology that starts with relaxing our muscles, our body and our muscles, so that our body will feel good when we decide to sit and just be with ourselves by observing our breath, or just listening to music, or paying attention to our body, being aware of our field of consciousness. If our body feels relaxed, our field of consciousness will feel better. And there's actually a certain area at the very heart of the emotional brain, called the insula, that receives messages from our body all the time. And the insula takes those messages from our body, and it makes us feel a certain mood that corresponds to how our body feels. And all of this is happening below consciousness, because everything the emotional brain does, it is doing outside of consciousness. We're not aware of it at all, except we're aware of the change of the emotional mood in our consciousness. That's our only clue to what our emotional brain is doing. How does our consciousness feel? And how does that feeling change? The emotional flavor of consciousness. So that's one of the things that we have to learn to listen for when we stop and do Zen, do meditation, and pay attention to ourselves and our consciousness. When we observe our consciousness, we should observe the emotional mood that our consciousness is in. So the first thing is to relax the muscles of our body. Now, I'm going to show you exercises that will relax particularly here in the back of the body and running down the spine. All of these muscles and the muscles of the shoulders and upper back, these muscles are all pretty tight in most of us. And then there are muscles running down the legs that we need to stretch out. And then we need to loosen up the muscles of our chest area. And even in our face, we need to loosen up the jaw muscle there, the jaw muscles, and our face muscles. We need to relax all of these muscles in order to get our body feeling good. And as I mentioned, cannabis is helpful for feeling when our muscles are relaxed and when they are tense, and for helping us recognize areas of tension in our muscles that we didn't realize were there, and then doing some exercises to relax them. Now, there's just simple exercises like this. Now, what am I doing when I do this? I'm opening my jaw and I'm stretching out the muscles that run on both sides of my face, from my cheekbone down to the jawbone. And I open the jaw and these muscles stretch out. And then I relax the jaw and the muscles relax. I can bring my lower jaw forward and that stretches the muscles in the back of the jaw. I can bring the jaw down and then back a little bit. Forward and back. I can move the jaw from side to side. And that stretches out all the muscles of the jaw. And then there's the tongue. The tongue goes from the mouth back all the way down to the throat. And to stretch out the tongue, first I extend my tongue and then I curl it back up. I curl it up against the roof of my mouth. And then I swirl it around the inside of my mouth. And that relaxes my tongue muscles. You probably never thought about the fact that your tongue is a muscle, but it is. And then we can relax the rest of the face muscles by doing different kinds of movements, like scrunching them up. Or stretching them out. Stretching out those areas. We can do our forehead. And we can do our eyes even if we stretch out our cheeks downward and then squint with our eyes. We're relaxing and stretching out the muscles around the eye. And I don't know, some people can move their scalp like this. I happen to be able to move my scalp. And what I'm doing here, as we do these exercises, oh, no, let me show you one more. Okay, important, the neck, okay? For the neck, all you got to do here, I'll turn it sideways, is let your head go down like that. Now you'll feel the muscles in the back of the neck stretching out, the muscles that go right up the back of the neck there. So you're letting your chin come down to your chest, and then you simply roll your head over toward one shoulder like that, and what you get is a stretch down the opposite shoulder. You keep this shoulder down and you feel a stretch on that side of the neck. Then you let your head come forward again. You bring it across to the other side. And you feel a stretch from there, down there. You're stretching out all those. And when your head comes forward, you're stretching out all the muscles in the back of the neck. These muscles in the back. See, and then there's the shoulder muscles here. These are muscles that come from the center of the body out to the arms. And to relax those, we can do a little shoulder roll. We lift the shoulders up toward the ears, and we pull them back like that, and we roll them down toward the floor, and we bring them forward. Lift them up and back, roll them down and forward. And then we can go the other direction, pull them back, lift them up, bring them forward, and roll them down. And, if you try this, it feels really good. You bring them back, breathe in when you bring your shoulders up, because that lifts the shoulders off the rib cage, then forward and down. And then up, you can come back and down and forward. Up, back, and down. Now, do these exercises really gently. Here, we've got some anatomical maps, and you can see that right there, those are the muscles we were just stretching out with the neck roll, letting the head hang forward, and then we were doing muscles that connect over here, muscles that connect the shoulders and arms to the rib cage. See over here, you can see that the rib cage is here, and the arms are just connected in a couple of spots by the collarbone in the front and the scapula, the shoulder blade in the back. And when you move, when you do these exercises, you are stretching out all the muscles in that area. And so that's the basic principle of these exercises. You can see that when you look at the side of the body, that there's a curve there, there's another curve here, and there's another curve there. These three curves are very important because they're areas that create a lot of tension and that get sore. And so there's the back of the neck, there's the upper back, and then the lower back, basically. These have a lot of tension in them. So that's why we get these muscles here that get tense in the lower back, the muscles in the upper back, and these muscles come out to the sides, to the shoulders and arms, and then the muscles in the back of the neck. Those are especially tension accumulating areas of the body. And so I invite you to start looking at and perform the exercises. What I'll do is I'll put them on a separate playlist of videos and give you the whole set of exercises that you need to loosen up the different parts of your body. And that's the first stage in pleasurology. And the second stage would be getting high and doing emotional catharsis, releasing emotions. Some of the exercises you can do for releasing emotions, for anger, for instance, you can get a tennis racket and hit a bed with the tennis racket and pretend it's somebody that you really hate, somebody that was an authoritarian figure in your life who ordered you around and you didn't like it and you resented it, someone who made you feel bad about yourself for any reason at all, someone who you just have anger for. It doesn't matter whether the anger is totally justified or not. If you feel the anger, you need to get it out. It doesn't matter whether people would say, oh, you shouldn't be angry about that. You should just let that go. You should allow yourself to get angry about it. And you should allow yourself to imagine that that person is on the bed and you're like pounding them with the tennis racket. And you lift it up and breathe in, and then you breathe out, and you make a big noise. The tennis racket will make noise hitting the bed, thump. But then also you want to be yelling. And that's the thing about emotional release, is you kind of need to warn people around you that you're going to be doing this, or find a place that's far enough away that nobody will get freaked out about it, because you need to get that anger out. But, you don't want people calling the police thinking that you're murdering somebody either. But anyway, you hit the bed, and you can get as angry as you want, yell as loud as you want, and get that anger out of your system. And that is so much healthier than taking the anger out little by little on the people in your environment, because you're holding it inside. And then you get angry at somebody when they do some little thing that annoys you, and you're happy to get angry at them because that gives you a chance to get your anger out. That's very destructive to relationships. If we're holding all this anger in, and we let it out just when somebody does something that irritates us, and we can get really angry at them, and we're really glad we've caught them doing something bad that we don't like, because we can get some of our anger out. Much better to take a tennis racket and hit the bed. The bed's not going to care. The bed's not going to feel it. The only thing you want to do, and I've learned this by sad experience, is make sure when you bring that tennis racket up over your head to hit the bed with it, that there isn't a light fixture in the ceiling over your head where the tennis racket is going to break the fixture or break the light bulb. You need to do this in a room where there's nothing but a nice high ceiling that the tennis racket is going to hit. You could do it outdoors on a sofa or something outdoors with a big cushion. That would be great, particularly if you're out in the country where there wasn't anybody around you, and you could just pound that cushion. Other thing you could do would be, take your car out, and a lot of cars are built pretty solidly. You can slam the door of the car, yell and slam the door, and it won't hopefully hurt the car. You can go off and I used to go jogging, and at night, out when there was nobody else out on the track, go jogging around this track and recite soliloquies from Shakespeare that I'd memorized, and just shout them, And there's all kinds of things you can do to get the anger out in a therapeutic way, but it's really an important thing. Our society needs desperately to invent ways of getting anger out that don't hurt anybody, but that are effective ways of doing it. And bataka battles, as I said, hitting each other with big foam sausages that don't hurt each other, and yelling and getting as angry as you want. That's one of the best things that we could possibly do. Everybody should be able to get into bataka battles as often as they want. But then afterwards, after we've done that catharsis, then we want to bring our emotional brain back down to calmness and safeness and happiness. So massage is really good. Group massage, sandwich hugs, nurturing affection. Get one person lying down on the floor and a couple people around them, and just caressing the back of their body and up and down from head to toe, and just caressing them in a tender, kind way, and an affectionate way, or putting someone in a sandwich hug, one person on each side. These are great ways of calming down afterwards. Going in a hot tub afterwards is a good way to relax after doing emotional catharsis. and say, okay, whew, it was good to get all that energy out, and I feel so much better having gotten it out. And now I feel so good that this is a good time for me to pay attention to myself, a good time for me to do wu wei, to do nothing at all except observe my own consciousness, observe my own body, and relax as much as I possibly can. And learn to have an additional habit in our emotional brain, a habit of being relaxed. We've all got the habit of being tense. None of us needs to learn that. We've all got that habit already. And what we need to learn is the different habit, the habit of being non-attached. That's a Buddhist concept, saying, okay, there's nothing right now in the world that I need to change out there. I mean, there's lots of stuff that I would like to change about the world to make the world a perfect place. But right now, I'm going to let go of all that stuff. I'm going to let go of all the unfulfilled desires that I personally may have and say, okay, those aren't happening right now. All I'm going to do is do what I can do, sit here and be nice and quiet, observe my own consciousness, teach my own emotional brain the habit of being calm, teach my emotional brain how to create a consciousness, a field of consciousness that is a cosmos, an ordered field of consciousness, keeping my attention focused on just one spot, just one thing, letting my emotions become absolutely not urgent, just the opposite of urgent, saying I'm perfectly okay with things exactly as they are right now for this particular period of time, that I am practicing being calm. Because the more that I can be calm as I go throughout my life, the better it is for my health as well as my happiness. I'm going to feel better emotionally, and my body is going to be a lot healthier, because the emotional brain controls our autonomic nervous system that flows throughout our body. That's the nervous system, that's a part of our nervous system that controls all of our internal organs. Our digestion, our immune system, our heart, our breathing, whether adrenaline is flowing through our body or not. And so, and our body is much healthier. Our immune system shifts over to a healthier mode of responding when we are not in an emotional mood of urgency or emergency. When we're in an emotional mood of calm, our immune system can deal with whatever's going on in our body a lot better than when we're in an emergency situation, when our mood is a fight or flight mood. That actually changes the way that our immune system responds. It will respond better to things like outside infections and wounds that we might get if we were fighting or running away from someone and going through the jungle and getting all scratched up. That's how the immune system responds when we're in an emergency mode, responds well to outside threats. But that takes away from our ability to fight internal problems like cancer, which can get started easily in the body, but which the immune system is there to kill those cancer cells and eat them up and destroy them. And so that's where we would want our immune system resources to be going, to maintaining our body in a healthy cancer-free state when we're not having to, defend ourselves in an emergency. And so that's one reason why chronic stress is not good for us. It makes it easier for us to get cancer. It's much better if we're relaxed. And the same thing with, heart rate and blood pressure. When you're in an emergency situation, when the emotional brain is in an emergency mood, It makes our heart beat faster. It makes our blood pressure go up. And both of those are not good for our health, particularly if they go on for a long period of time. If our emotional brain stays permanently in emergency mode and our blood pressure stays high constantly and our heart rate is fast, that's not good for our body. It's not good for our cardiovascular system or our brain. So relaxation is healthy for us, and it feels much better to be relaxed. Epicurus, sort of the grandfather of pleasurology, way back in the days of the Greek philosophers around 300 BC, Epicurus said, the greatest happiness that we can find on earth is simply to have a consciousness that is not disturbed by any emotions of urgency or emergency, a consciousness that is as calm as a peaceful ocean on a windless day or a peaceful lake, and at the same time not have any feelings of pain coming from our body. Epicurus said the highest happiness we can have is calm emotions and a body that doesn't hurt. Now, it's clear that Epicurus never knew about super euphoric sex, because he definitely would have put that in there also as an alternative way of also feeling really good. And we start from that place of calmness and being undisturbed emotionally and having a body that's relaxed and feeling really good. And then we add to that sexual arousal, remaining nice and relaxed while we get sexually aroused. And this is how we build up that sexual bliss cloud in consciousness that makes it possible for us to have cosmic orgasms. One of the things that we need to do in order to have, after we've gotten nice and relaxed, and we've made a habit of keeping our emotional brain relaxed, having a nice coherent cosmic consciousness, an orderly consciousness, when we become sexually active and become sexually aroused and start generating sexual arousal bliss, one of the things we've got to have is a sexual value system that's a sex-positive value system, meaning our culture has traditionally been sex-negative and has made us feel bad about sexuality, has made us feel ashamed of our sexuality, and so forth. And our emotional brain will respond to all the social learning that we have been given about sex, the sex-negative social learning. Our emotional brain will respond to that by making us feel guilty and ashamed, and that we have to hide our sexuality, and that we have to lie about our sexuality, that we have to conceal it from other people, and that we should hope to never get caught when we're being sexually active in any way, either by ourselves or with someone else. These are tension emotions. Anxiety, shame, and guilt are tension emotions. And so if we feel any anxiety, shame, or guilt about our sexual activity, our emotional brain will be working against itself. We'll be getting sexually aroused, but we'll be having to fight off these feelings, the tension feelings that come from sexual anxiety and guilt and shame. And so what we really want is to change our sexual value system to a sex-positive value system, and to have our emotional brain take on new sex-positive learning, so that our emotional brain, when we're being sexual, will feel proud of our ability to create as much sexual pleasure as possible in our consciousness, and say, this is a morally good thing. This is a morally approvable thing, to create as much sexual happiness with our pleasure-creating system as possible. The more euphoric states of consciousness we can create, the better we are actually using our life, our body, and our consciousness to create happiness in the world for ourselves and for the people that we're with. So I'll be talking next time more about the sexual value system that we've inherited and a more natural and sex-positive sexual value system, which I think we should embrace as the foundation for super euphoric sex. Okay, thank you very much. Talk to you again next time.